Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We are going to start our webinar today, and first let me to introduce about few rules that we are going to follow during the webinar. So welcome everybody to the webinar about fostering civic participation through agriculture education in urban schools. And today's webinar will be run by Alex Kudryavtsev also with his colleague Maggie Gauss. And the second presentation will be from Aleksandar Novović. During the webinar, I would like to ask you to keep yourself muted and don't unmute yourself during the presentations. If you have any questions during the presentations, you can write them on chat, and we will come back to them after the presentations are finished. Also, if you wish to receive a diploma, please write it privately on chat to me or to Florian. After the webinar, we will share with you also a link to SurveyMonkey, and we would like to ask you to follow up with the questions and give us some feedback about the webinar, and also suggestions for future webinars. Tomorrow we are going to run another webinar about mobile journalism, and on 19th of May about wildlife and conservation photography. If you are interested about this, please sign yourself for the webinar or share this information with other participants. Today's our speakers, it's Alex Kudryavtsev. He's an environmental education researcher in the Civic Ecology Lab at Cornell University, and he explored urban environmental education and social outcomes of urban agriculture education. Alex is the first editor of the Urban Environmental Education Review book published by Cornell University Press. He also develops online courses for professional development of environmental educators. And our second speaker, Aleksandar Novović, is a politologist and social and environmental activist from Montenegro. Part of his activism is oriented in the field of informal and formal environmental education in schools. Through his work, he established first school garden in Montenegro, and he's a co-author of a school garden education program called School Garden Integral Classroom. Also, he's a co-founder of his first urban garden community in Montenegro called Civic Ecology Lab. If you have any questions also to ask during the webinar, please share them on chat. And now I would like to introduce our first speaker, and Alex and Maggie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share a screen right now, and we are recording today, right? Gosha?
Okay. Yes, we are recording the webinar, and it will be uploaded after the webinar on our website.
Excellent, fantastic. Okay, let me just open the chat just in case. While we expect most questions at the end, but if anyone will have questions on the end, I will keep my eye on the chat box, so you're welcome. But before I begin, can I actually ask everybody, go to the chat box and type your name, organization, city, and country. Please, everybody, and I will do the same. So go to the chat, type your name, organization, city, and country. So I just love to see, okay, there's people from Portugal, South Africa, US, Estonia, Denmark, Malta, Latvia, more US, Glasgow, Malta, Malawi. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. This is the whole world. Malaysia, Argentina, oh my God, Spain. So, okay, so everybody, if you have not done, please type your name, organization, city, and country. It's so amazing to see this geography, the whole world. Well, I hope that we don't keep you in the middle of the night, but even if it is in the middle of the night, I hope you will enjoy this presentation. So thank you, Gosha, again for introducing me. And I also wanted to introduce my co-author in this presentation, Maggie Gauss. She's an undergraduate at Cornell University with an interest in social research and also civic engagement dimensions of natural resources in communities. So today, myself and Maggie would like to discuss with you civic participation as an outcome of urban environmental and specifically urban agriculture education in urban schools. So before we start, I'd like just to thank all the team on this and collaborators on this project, starting with Marian Krasny, the director of Civic Ecology Lab, and Thad Copeland from Department of Education in New York City, who has recently connected us with so many awesome schools in New York City for this research, and other people who are mentioned on this slide who have been immensely helpful in this research. And there's also a link for you if you wanted to learn more. So how it all started, actually the whole idea and history of this project starts 10,000 years ago, maybe, when with the invention of agriculture, we've created surplus that helped us to create cities for people to exchange goods and invent more things. But then, closer to our times, we see that cities, unfortunately, they face enormous amount of social and environmental issues. And today, maybe a couple centuries ago, we see that urban agriculture now rejoins cities. And for different reasons, because people want to grow food closer, they want to diminish their environmental impact, and we have an explosion of ideas recently how urban agriculture education merges educational systems and have plenty of really interesting social impacts, one of which is civic participation, which would like to explore through this project and share today with you. So before we go deeper into this presentation, since we have so many countries, let me just take a look again. Bosnia and Herzegovina, somebody from Washington, D.C., Kenya, Montenegro, India, Bogota, Texas. Oh my gosh, so awesome. So you guys are representing the whole planet. So I definitely don't have experience with our planet as much as this group as a whole, but I've been to a few places where I experienced some types of urban agriculture that I wanted to share with you before we really start this presentation. So when I went to Mexico City and I visited this organization, Center for Environmental Education and Information, they go to a number of urban schools which previously have never had green spaces, and they establish urban gardens, school gardens, and they also develop curricula which teachers from different subjects can use. So for example, surprisingly, teachers of English, for example, they can take whole classes and learn new words, verbs, and language in the garden using the plants. When I went to Taipei, Taiwan, I visited the first eco school in this country, and they have an amazing school garden with so many purposes and activities, anything from rainwater collection to water purification to composting systems and butterfly gardens, which help them to maintain to keep accreditation as an eco school and keep their wonderful eco school flag. In Rio de Janeiro, I've visited a totally different example of urban agriculture education. So on this picture, you will see students from a local university. They come to one of favelas, and you know, favelas in Brazil are some of the poorest neighborhoods. And so these university students, they grow plants, potted plants, and also hydroponics to inspire younger elementary school students, inspire interest in learning about science. This is such a wonderful project. A totally different example I found in Seattle, where in this community garden that was established by Chinese immigrants, they grow plants that you cannot find in grocery stores. And if you are a Chinese immigrant who would like to maintain your cooking traditions and cook something that your grandparents cooked and you cannot find this vegetable in the store, you can grow it here. You can also invite children and other members of your community to participate in this garden, learn about culture, reconnect with other cultures, and build a better, more trust within your community. About 5 years ago, this picture I took in New York, the Bronx, New York. And this is from a high school where a hydroponic system has been installed, and high school students not only grow plants, but they also bring them to the school kitchen, school cafe, and they cook, they use these plants to cook and feed good meals for their peers. This picture, another picture that I took in so-called science barge, which is now in Yonkers, New York. Basically, this science barge is an educational facility that has all kinds of contemporary, like modern technologies, anything from solar panels to hydroponics to water purification systems and wind energy that they show to the students and inspire their interest in science as well as healthy eating and healthy habits. So you see there's very different very different types of urban agriculture and how it meets and merges with educational systems. I think it's time for us to go to the central part of this presentation, and we will begin with the definition of what is urban agriculture and urban agriculture education outcomes. And then later, we will look at one specific outcome, which is civic participation. So we will look at one of the frameworks for civic participation, and then we will review our current research on civic participation as an outcome of urban agriculture education in New York City, as well as what literature and publications say about civic participation in urban agriculture education. All right, so what is urban agriculture? There's so many definitions, and I've tried to put, instead of defining it, I decided to give you many examples of different urban agricultural systems. So on this slide, the green circles you will see, these are types of urban agriculture where you grow something. It can be plants, it can be sometimes mushrooms, sometimes it can be even animals, such as like chicken eggs, or even oysters. So it's still part of urban agriculture. Some people, however, also include into urban agriculture elements that are not producing food, but they are related to food distribution and consumption, which includes community-supported agriculture, farmers markets, food co-ops, garden to cafe, cooking classes, etc. For the purposes of our research, we don't include this non-productive urban agriculture. We'll look at mostly at the producing part, the green aspects of urban agriculture, of which the most popular parts, at least in the US and New York City, where we conduct this research, are school gardens, #1 here, and #7 here, community gardens. However, we also see a growing number of urban farms and indoor classroom systems that use hydroponic systems as well. So it's growing in numbers as well. So in general, urban agriculture education, we call it like any educational and learning activities that are embedded in all these various types of urban agriculture. It can be curriculum that's designed about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math that's integrated with urban ag. Can be after school programs, summer youth employment programs, or cooking demonstrations, and dozens of other types of where urban agriculture meets education. And as many types of urban agriculture education exists, maybe there's as many, if not no more, types of outcomes that urban agriculture and urban agriculture education can produce. On the left on this diagram, and this again, I could draw you maybe many diagrams, and you could draw many more diagrams that represents different outcomes. On the left, you can see that urban agriculture can result in fresh produce that you can give to urban communities. On the right, environmental outcomes, such as you can build more resilient systems, mitigate climate change, etc. And in the center top, you will see one social aspect of the, one type of social impacts of urban agriculture and urban agriculture education, specifically on students and youth. We use the framework of positive youth development, which itself contains many other outcomes. For example, we can expect that students who are part of, who participate in urban agriculture education, they can be, they increase their self-efficacy, which is believing in themselves that they're capable members of communities to make positive changes in their communities. We can also talk about, for example, science literacy or environmental literacy, where we can expect that students who participate in urban ag will make better dietary choices or improve their, maybe receive some job training. Many of these outcomes may be contributing to a larger outcome which we are interested, which is creating more civically engaged citizens. So we hypothesize that students who participate in urban agriculture education, they will deal with solving different social and environmental issues, and at the end, they will be interested, they will be capable to solve even more questions related to urban agriculture, but maybe also other social and environmental issues in their communities. That's why on top you will see in this pink a very desired outcome, civically engaged citizens. And of course, also by way of participating in urban agriculture, we can expect that we will grow or nurture next generation of urban farmers as well. So these outcomes are kind of hypothetical, and we wanted to see what outcomes actual urban agriculture educators in New York City are mentioning, or what outcomes they desire, they want, around which outcomes they are designing their urban agriculture programs. So we've got this grant, a 3-year grant, to work to answer this question. And we've recently started it. We have already interviewed a few educators from NGOs, teachers from elementary and high schools in New York City, and most of them mentioned 4 types of desired outcomes of their urban agriculture education programs. Many of them would like students to learn about science, connect to nature, improve students' health, mental and physical. And interestingly, most of these educators, although they rarely articulate or call it civic participation, but they indicate that they are interested to make their students more active members of their communities. So before we talk about this last outcome, civic participation, we need to understand what is the framework of civic participation. And literature offers a few frameworks, and we liked this one because it has been one of the most cited and people refer to this, so it's easy to discuss this framework with many other researchers. And second, we found it very reflective of what's going on in the communities. So Ekman and Amna, they published this paper that classifies different types of civic participation, and they include social involvement, which means you're developing an identity or attention, or sort of attention to different social and issues in your communities. And also there's another type of civic participation is civic engagement, where you are making tangible actions to solve them. Both social involvement and civic engagement have 2 levels, individual forms and collective forms. Like individual social involvement, for example, you perceive that politics are important, or you have to take interest in some societal issues. On individual level, you can civically engage. For example, you can write a letter to newspaper editors or politicians, or donate money to some charity. Collective forms will really love them because I think they can be exercised in urban agriculture education. Social involvement is you examples can be you become a member of some interest groups or clubs, maybe some agricultural clubs. And collective form of civic engagement, you are actually doing something along with other community members collectively. Maybe you will create a new community garden. Maybe you will advocate for more and create more green spaces in your city. And I actually put together just, again, some hypothetical examples of both social involvement and civic engagement, individual and collective forms related to urban agriculture education. For example, if you take a look at civic engagement and collective forms of civic engagement, again, I think I've mentioned some of them. You can volunteer in urban agriculture organizations and gardens, and by doing so, you will contribute to solving some local social and environmental problems. And you do it collectively with other members of the community. So now it's probably time for us to look at some examples in New York City. Again, this is a preliminary study, but by conversation with probably a little bit more than 10 educators in New York City, we found that they are doing extraordinary work on involving their students in some interesting community civic participation activities. And I've listed here some of them on the left in this list. I probably will not go through all of them, but for example, students are growing their foods in hydroponic systems or in gardens, and there's a lot of this food actually sometimes, and they donate it to soup kitchens, those organizations that distribute free food to those people in need. They also go and donate some of this food to retirement and nursing homes. And there have been some interesting stories where when they visit those retirement homes, there's like intergenerational learning when young students meet older generation people, and they understand each other's needs. They understand they are all members of this community. And so this is probably the only chance for them to meet each other and interact. Then let's see, maybe selling produce in farmers markets. That was at number 4. That's another interesting example. So some schools open their grounds to create temporarily farmers markets where students will sell some of this produce to local communities. And remember, even in New York, we call many communities food deserts, which means that some members of these communities have hard time to find healthy foods because it's just not available at local grocery stores. So students are trying to address this food desert and obesity and unhealthy eating habits problems by distributing this food, either donating or selling it to local community members. And it opens a ground for like conversation and connection with communities. Let's see a little bit more in-depth examples. So this picture, these pictures that I took 2 months ago before the COVID outbreak, when I could actually visit some of the schools. Now I will be conducting this research mostly through Zoom. But nevertheless, when I went to one of the schools in the South Bronx, I just noticed that most of schools in the Bronx in New York City, they kind of look like fortress. So it's like a box, community members don't know what's going inside. Parents don't have a say about what students are learning in schools, and it's just like, yeah, just a fortress. However, on the perimeter of the school, there's a miracle. There's this garden which offers like a window, like a link, a connection between community members and schools, because community members can pass by and glance what students are growing. Sometimes school grounds is opening and community members come in and work alongside with students. And sometimes another school will come here, like this is a high school, and maybe an nearby elementary school doesn't have a garden, and their kids can come and communicate with older students here. So yeah, school gardens are nurturing this school community link. which is much needed. Another link that school gardens can create is, at least in New York City, there is a number of NGOs and other types of organizations that provide all kinds of resources for schools to build these gardens, to develop curriculum and develop more connections with the communities. They donate greenhouses, donate money to establish raised beds, and foster other connections. So urban agriculture as a way to build connections between schools and NGOs and the larger civil society around schools. Sometimes schools don't have their own soil or grounds for gardens, so they may either use community gardens as their school garden. In this case, students always or often meet other community members, and there's a lot of intergenerational learning and cultural learning. And this is just an example of a high-tech agriculture where I've just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that modern hydroponic system, they can really help you grow a lot of food that classroom students cannot consume. So they bring this produce to their families or sell it to communities or donate to soup kitchens and those who are in need. So while we do this empirical study, we also would like to see what's going on in terms of discussion of civic participation as an outcome of urban agriculture education in literature. And since we're in our research group is in the US, we've been interested in US-based publications. So Maggie, my collaborator on this project, will present a little bit more about this.
Hello, everyone. So as Alex said, we are conducting a scoping review of a lot of the literature related to civic engagement and civic participation. And a scoping review is much like a systematic literature review, except we're just looking at the literature that exists, but what specifically is published out the field about civic engagement. So we found that there's a very limited scope of papers that fit our criteria. And our criteria being something that involved urban agriculture, something that involved high school students, and something that involved civic participation of some sort. But we ended up finding 11 papers, and there was a surprising diversity of examples that we found in just these 11 papers. So there's so many different setups that people can implement into their schools to foster this type of civic participation that we're looking at. We found things like urban farm networks. We found food justice nonprofits. We found summer farming internships. And then we found people that have just implemented environmental curriculum. So there's a huge diversity of programs that we found. But then when we're looking at our civic participation here, we've divided it into two main groups. We found, as Ekman and Amna published, we found social involvement, where people are directing their attention to environmental issues. So people are developing social capital. They're wanting to pursue environmental interests. And then there's also civic engagement, where they're actually acting with these environmental beliefs. They're advocates. They're opening farm stands. They're doing something in their communities that really make a difference from these programs.
Thank you, Maggie. I would like to wrap up this presentation, which since we've learned, we just started learning about civic participation as an outcome based on our literature review and our empirical study. And but we already have some. I want to leave you with two messages. One message is we would like to think about what types of outcomes, or when you can measure, what kind of impacts you make within and outside your program, and when you can measure them. So maybe Maggie can just comment on this.
Sure. So currently we're hypothesizing that there's three main categories of impacts that teachers can have on their students. One of them being things that they foster within their programs. their civic participation that can be manifested through the programs that people are putting into their schools. You can start a community garden with your students, and you can lead them to donate the food to a food bank, for example. And then there's another group where students are taking the initiative and having these impacts on their own. So if you foster environmental attitudes and really good environmental values in your students, then they might be able to do things that can affect the community on their own outside of the program. And then the third impact is over the long term. One of the studies that we were looking at analyzed what people were doing for careers after 5 to 10 years following these programs. And then there was an increased incidence of people getting involved in environmental advocacy. So these programs can have a very long-term effect as well as these short-term effects, and that's a really key takeaway.
Thank you. So, and just a couple of concluding thoughts about what urban agriculture, education, civic participation can have, what implications are for the larger educational systems and cities. So we think that impacts, it's important to think about impacts of urban agriculture education, not only on students, not only on kids, but urban residents as well, and institutions. We involve so many people and so many types of organizations together. And so that would be an interesting idea to research in the future. Also, another aspect is we hopefully our research will have impact, or at least start make some educators think how to integrate urban agriculture closer with their school curriculum and connect it with their STEM education. We also think that this research and future publications on this research in this area will help us involve all people who live around these schools in educating students. So not only schools and urban agriculture educators are responsible to involve students in civic participation, think about issues of healthy eating, mental and physical health, and obesity and school resilience, but urban agriculture can help involve parents, other community members, and NGOs to work together on these issues and educating students. And finally, we hope that urban agriculture education can strengthen civil society in general, because when people come together and work on these environmental and social issues related to urban agriculture education, then they can work together on articulating more clearly these problems and identifying ways how to work together to solve them through education and through urban agriculture. I would like to thank everybody who been listening to this presentation, and I also see there's a question, will these slides will be shared? We will share the actual PowerPoint on our research website, which is listed here on this last slide. And I think that Gosia said that the whole presentation will be, the recorded presentation will be posted on the Foundation for Environmental Education website. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. So, and I'm so excited now to hear the second presentation where Aleksandar will actually put some of these theoretical ideas into practice. He's an amazing practice in Montenegro.
Thank you, Alex. It was really amazing and interesting. And I saw that there was quite many questions actually on chat. So maybe also you can review them in the meantime. I believe some of them are also to our second speaker, Aleksandar, because they would be relevant also to this presentation. So welcome, Aleksandar. Now you can share your screen, and yeah, we are looking forward to your presentation, and then we will go back to the questions.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. In advance, I want to thank all hosts and coordinators of this webinar for giving me a chance to share my experience with all of you. And of course, in advance, forgive me if my English is pretty funny. So we will see how to do that, but we will do it. I'm just trying to find this high technology button for sharing screen.
It's the green button on the bottom of the screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I will really try to be, precise and short. But also I want to thank Alex and Maggie for this academic observation. So you made my part of job much easier. And you will see in our experience, we made actually a lot of these things they already mentioned. So I'm pretty happy. That means that we are pretty on good way, but we will see. Practice is totally different, and sometimes even story like this looks much prettier than it is, but in practice is really different. Because we are from all around the planet, shortly I will just give you briefly introduction to us. We are a really small NGO from Montenegro, and our core programs are urban agriculture, of course, focus on communities, ecological education, like informal or formal education, and agroforestry. Down you can see 5 core elements of these programs. And today, of course, topic is about urban agriculture and ecological education. Actually, school garden concept we started to implement 2016 in Montenegro. Alex gave me one idea to show you also shortly how it looks, our location, and how it works there. We are located 7 kilometers from capital of Montenegro, and on that position we have really good conditions to experiment with gardening, with the community building, permaculture, and other let's say events related to social movements, agriculture and stuff. I will not read a lot of these things. I just want to show you short visual context how it looks in Montenegro. So in the same time, we are really lucky to have a lot of natural resources and fortunes around us, but also that's our challenge, how to save them. So this is the same area, and it's only 7 kilometers. And in general, Montenegro looks like this. You know, it's very dense, and we have a lot of beautiful things. Okay, I will go now to give you how we will pass through this webinar. So, as you see, introduction in local context, I wanted to give you that because I still don't know how you recognize Montenegro as a country, or in one moment, if you think that I'm missing the point or something, then I just want to show you why I'm talking in some direction, not in another one. I just want to show you some local challenges from local context, but I hope it will be the same actually in every country. You know, we have similar problems, but the scale is different. Then I want to introduce you in our consideration of urban agriculture. We consider urban agriculture as a really effective response on current social issues, and that's what we are doing last couple of years. We are always talking that agriculture for us is more like a human technology, not technology of preparing soil or planting plants, especially if we do that in a city. We will talk shortly about principles and potentials of school garden concept. Alex and Maggie, they already said a lot of these things, so it will be easier for me, and I can be more shorter. And then I will introduce you our school garden integral classroom program. We call it like that because you will see we started like ecology and environmental activities, but then we just saw that we can solve much more things, much more problems than we started at the beginning. So you will see how we implemented all this school garden concept in official education system. And in the end, very shortly, only about some specific results we achieved, like just personal achievement of kids, or changing some social situation in you know, everyday life in a school and stuff like this. Okay, this summary was long, but okay, we will do. So shortly, social context of Montenegro is pretty much, let's say, rocky. We are in so-called transition period since the 90s, because I don't know if you familiar, but we had war during the 90s, then the end of the 90s, and we are still recovering in that let's say, comprehensive transition from a socialist society to capitalist society. And because I'm talking about solving problems through the agricultural methods, I will just show you, of course, some universal problems like slow social mobility, unsustainable economy, outdated education and school system, demographic imbalance, because we are not a decentralized country. Everything is centralized in a central area, where is capital Montenegro. So we are just losing population on the north of Montenegro, and everybody is coming in Podgorica capital. So that means that we are already starting to be big city, and already we can feel problems which you can feel in western or eastern part of the world in a big cities. And of course, even if we are officially ecological state in our constitution, we have a lot of environmental and ecological problems. And in the last period, as I mentioned, cities, we have really bad strategy of urban developing. So all those problems, of course, every country has the same problem, but actually we found that could be possible to solve these problems with the method of growing new integral citizens, new generations. And we always offer and we propose agriculture as a solution. So I already said at the beginning, urban agriculture is definitely for us, in our consideration, is a tool for social change, and potentials of urban agriculture is a really big toward social innovation, and not only rejoining community, not only recovering cities, not only finding the way of, I don't know, how to be more energetically efficient or independent from the system, but in general, how to help whole system, let's say, to progress together. So that was our inspiration. We started the urban garden. I like to say a community garden 2014, and 2016 we started this school garden project. And of course, we took inspiration and vision from our knowledge from urban gardens. I already mentioned, but there are some things, you know, like if you have an urban garden, not only in a social way, but also in architectural way, in ecological way, you can make cities more sustainable. You can create green areas around the city. You can make small circular or microeconomics, and you can, in one moment, probably you can change some patterns, how to participate in official politics or in general in decision making. Of course, agriculture means inclusion of the citizens, and community gardens around the world are actually part of a new generation of social movements, and somehow in one way that means new kind of self-organizing citizens, which of course mean really truthful inclusion of citizens. And of course, ecology, we consider ecology like a last stand for fighting human rights, you know, like in last period, and probably in the future we will have in general problems with the water supplies, with air, with stuff. So in one moment, the real human rights question will be how to have sovereignty to organize our own life. Okay, that was enough about theory. So our garden, from now I think you will see all photos from our concept. So I think I didn't use any internet photo. When you see real photo, of course, from internet or something, is just from our concept. So the biggest challenge when we enter in school was how to adapt, let's say, pioneer concept to traditional education system, and how to approach to people, and how to be more, let's say, less visible there, because we wanted really to make not so painful changes in everyday activities in school. So basic principles of our concept are extracurricular or interdisciplinary activities, which means that we really research all legislative documents about official education system, and about new initiatives which are, let's say, gave from above, you know, like which government created. And we wanted to, let's say, make a new space for learning and teaching. So we wanted to make more correlation between practice and theory, because in our country that was the problem last couple of years. You know, when you see the people finish school and or universities or whatever, but they are not experienced enough. You know, they are still in theoretical knowledge, but it's really difficult for them to make their knowledge more operative. So that was one of our principles. Okay, we have to do practical knowledge in schools. And of course, we really researched every book from any grade we are having workshops. So we really connected our concept to official education curriculum. As you see, these are fields, what we are doing in the schools. Of course, green program is normal for any situation. Probably everywhere in the world is the same: agriculture and botanics, ecology, environmental topics, sustainable development and sustainable city concept, climate issues, and waste management. But the, let's say, new thing what we did about our concept, we implemented psychology and neuro-linguistic programming and literature, because you will see later, in one moment we understood that ecological education or new knowledge kids received is just a new knowledge, but they need new methods how to receive new knowledge, and they need new methods how to make it operative. On the right side, there is one example how we combine different fields when we have workshops. For instance, you have the Giving Tree story for kids and the Small Prince. And for instance, we were explaining the term sustainability on practice of these two characters. For instance, the Giving Tree boy was the guy who was only taking from nature but never giving back. And on the other side, we have Little Prince and some symbolic view, like he has his only planet, very small planet, and even if he go away, one day he will return, because for him there is no planet B. So which is similar like for humankind. And then we were comparing like a practice of Little Prince and practice of Giving Tree boy. So we were trying to find solution how to be better boy from first story. Okay, this is just example. I will not stay here too much. Because we wanted to create, as I mentioned already, we really wanted to have new methods, and we really wanted to implement new methods in our concept. As you see, this is only a short draft of what kind of handbooks or methods we were researching. Of course, 21st century skills or competencies for education and sustainable development goals. I suppose everybody is introduced in that in these concepts. So of course for us it was something like basic informations. And of course we were researching and we were collaborating with psychologists about methods how to individualize teaching approach to kids, and how to make, let's say, diverse learning styles and stuff. I put here one book, Summerhill, from Aleksandar Novović. It's considered like a radical, let's say, teaching approach, but we just sometimes we just testing some things how it works, and our biggest feedback are actually kids, so we can see what's going on and how it works, because one of our biggest challenge was actually to change fear from expected response. For instance, when we started to do school garden and the first class, actually first workshop, we were talking with kids, and then of course they know that we will do school gardens. So any questions I gave them, like, okay, what is your favorite hobby, or what you like to do in a free time? They were like, gardening. So gardening was the main answer. And then we understood actually that's the problem with the official education, kids are taught to give you always expected answer, you know, so they are really afraid to give you anything which is not expected from, in this moment, let's say, teacher. Okay, so now I will just shortly say how it works. So we work since 2016, we work with the 3rd grade. In last 2 years, we started to preparing program for 4th grade and the 5th grade. 3rd grade in our country is like 8 or 9 years old, so you can count other grades. And the strategy is to have like 20 activities per grade in one school year, which is multiplied with 6 because we are doing with groups, and every class department is one group. In general, approximately they have like 25 kids. It could be less, it would be better probably for working with them, but that's how it works. And in one moment, during 1 year, we can, if we do with the 3rd grade and 4th grade, we can do in one moment with 300 kids. And if you summarize since 2016, how many kids we already have, and one of the biggest actually specific goals we achieved actually is now when we go in that school, Dragiš Ivanović in Podgorica, we already have 5 generations passed through our workshops. So now we can say that we have almost 1,000 kids, less than 1,000, but about 500, 600 kids already know what is attitude, environmentalistic attitude or awareness. So that's our biggest feedback, and we are really proud on that fact. We were working not only in one school, also we were working in 3 other schools and 2 kindergartens. But for now, we are really focused on elementary schools. And now I will show you just shortly examples of our workshops. For instance, if we work if we talk about seed or similar, you see that we can organize our workshops inside or outdoor, and you see that we have multimedia theoretical part. It's really interactive, so there is no one direction teaching. It's we are teaching through the questions, so every time we navigate them to give us a lead how to manage our workshop. Practical part and seeds, of course, they during these workshops, for instance, they check probably like 20 or 30 sorts of seed, and we talk about it, and we talk about processes in nature, how it works with seed in nature, or how it works when you are agricultural guy, so how you can manage your seeds and let's say provide your own sustainability on long term.
Aleksandar, I need to notify you that we are running out of time, actually.
Okay.
So this is have to kind of speed up with.
Okay, this is just, I will not. This is the same example. I just wanted to show how many different spaces we can create, and that's one actually of our biggest goal. You know, to extend didactic possibilities in a school and to extend the let's say classroom space, you know. So these are examples how it works. I will not give a lot of details. This is something what already Alex mentioned. So it's about community building. He said about Bronx high schools, they look like fortresses, and sometimes community people, they don't see what's going on in a school. So that was one of our goals. You see, we called parents and neighbors just to show. Excuse me?
No, it's okay. It was some voice for participants.
Okay. Also, in the end, I just want to show that we have, let's say, data about every student. So we are really collecting data. Are they more focused on art, more focused on visual or mathematical or whatever? So all these little garden diaries we are checking, and we are trying to find method how to have different indicators in which direction any kid will go. And this is almost the end. what we discovered school garden is, because I saw a lot of questions in a chat about plants, about are they spraying them or how to raise a plant and stuff. I think that's the last thing. I mean, in our practice, that's the last thing. I really put these empty photos just to show that even if you create a school garden, it's not enough. Infrastructure, it is basic, but it's not enough. We need human movement, you know. So, for instance, when we did these gardens in Montenegro, it was really spectacular. Everybody was happy except us, because we didn't see long-term possibilities. For instance, basic goals are easy to achieve. Outdoor classroom, more practical knowledge, we checked. Restricted school space, let's say, checked. You know, we just changed geography and architecture of classroom. Extended didactic and teaching possibilities, checked. Everything is checked. But what is real challenge is actually this. We still have bad communication among kids. You know, some kids, they have self-confidence, some kids, they don't. And sometimes teachers are not able to catch all those complex net of communication among them. Also, we have bad communication between teachers and kids, which could be a consequence of very rigid and traditional education system. And as I said, kids giving you answer which they think you expect. Gender issues in our country are still affecting process, and it was funny thing how to fix those things. For instance, if we are in a garden and we are talking about teamwork, we have problems because boys, they want to take tool and they don't want to let girls doing with the tool, you know, because they are boys and stuff like that. And of course, the biggest challenge is actually teachers demotivated and not involved enough. And there is a lot of reasons. They are not paid enough at first place. On the other side, they don't have enough conditions to create their own, let's say, their own imagination or their own initiative. So this could be the biggest challenge for all of us, because this kind of projects, we are NGO, we are implementing this project, but one day it would be better for sustainability of this project to school create this concept, not us. You know, we can show them how it works. We can give examples. We can start things. But if teachers and principal of a school and all other guys, if they are not involved, then this concept will not be sustainable, and it will be very, very bad. Maybe it could be more like some official thing, but in essence, it will not work. And this is long-term goals. Again, it fits with Alex and Maggie's talking. So long-term, if you provide sustainability of this project, if you provide continuance, then you can talk about individual development of children, and you can talking about system which provide them to be aware citizens and full of self awareness and stuff. And then we have to involve teachers, parents, and of course community. And for the end, I think we are in the end. Yes, only 2 slides. These are some specific results we achieved. As I said, we are trying to change that gender issue picture, and these patterns they already have like a consequence of our society. Also, we had one really good result, like when we were doing compost and creating soil, kids started to pick up bio-waste from home, and they were taking it at school. So it was very confusing situations. Parents were calling teachers, what's going on? My kid's taking waste and bringing to school. So that was like a small, quiet revolution in a home, you know, just to show how it works with sustainability. And what is really, really good, officially bad students in this education system in our workshops are really active, and they really find themselves and they really see that their talent could be more respected from community than in a traditional environment, educational environment. And this is for the end. Let's say we were working very hard the last couple of years, so in one moment we were also part of international projects, and these projects actually helped us to spread this idea in other schools. So in total we were in 4 schools in Montenegro. Okay, sorry guys if it was too much quick talking, or I don't know if I was confusing in one moment, but I will answer any question in chat and however you want. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Aleksandar. If you can stop sharing the screen as well. And we are kind of running a bit out of time, so I will actually, you have to click on the top of your, yes. So I will maybe pick only the 2 questions from a chat, and then we will switch to Mentimeter if we still have time. I have one question that popped up on the chat. Does, to any of you, to Alex or Aleksandar, does urban agriculture have a disadvantage?
Well, to me, urban agriculture education has a lot of advantages, more advantages than disadvantages. Ability to attract people from different backgrounds, diversity of opinions, cooking preferences, cultures. There's someone in the chat, actually, I'm reading it, and somebody mentioned that, hey, not all schools have enough space for gardens. So that can be a disadvantage, for example, but it can also lead to creativity. For example, you can use community gardens, or you can use some other public spaces. Maybe you can collaborate with local botanical gardens or some other institutions that do have space and create a program and bring your students there. And finally, with the rise of technology and hydroponics, you can bring hydroponic systems inside your classroom. And I'm pretty sure that school principals and other science educators will be super happy about that, because it also offers connection with STEM learning as well. So try to be creative. There's also there's also space in the roof. So if maybe you will be able, some schools are able to create green spaces on the roof. Be creative.
Yes, definitely. And also there was a question also related, maybe one of you can also give a feedback about this. But most of the examples that you were showing are related to the food type of plants. What about growing different type of herbs and flowers? Maybe from Montenegro, you have those examples also in garden, or what do you think about it?
Okay, in general, you can grow whatever you want. It really doesn't matter, is it food or herbs, medicinal herbs or whatever. As I said, the sustainability of this project is actually involvement of the people. So whatever they choose, actually that's the second level, let's say, because you're checking your climate zone, you're checking your environmental or ecological conditions. So of course that everybody will grow something different. So there is no problem about that. And I will also answer on this, when they don't have space, sometimes classroom could be space, roof from the school or whatever, depends of architecture. So the most important thing, just organize kids and give them your free time. You know, in one moment, that's a starting sacrifice, because for instance, when we started, it was for free. It was like volunteering 1.5 years. We didn't have money for anything, just for materials. So that's good start. And then you will see yourself that you already gave yourself to that concept, and you will not give up easily after that.
Thank you so much. I saw also some other questions. Also, if you can share the examples of curriculum or something like that for different countries. So we will collect those questions and we will come back to our presenters, so they can maybe email those information to people that ask about it. And just for 1-2 minutes yet, if you still have time to stay with us, I would like to ask you to go to www.menti.com. You can do it on your phone or on the screen or on your computer where you are watching us, and fill the code 55, 29, and 42. And even through this, we can have some small discussions also to our presenters, and you can fill some questions to our presenters, and we can collect them for later. If you don't have access to link, you can also,
maybe it's good
you
to
can do it also on chat.
Okay.
Yes. Maybe not for this. Somehow it doesn't let me to go further. Sorry, I have some problem with Mentimeter in this, and it doesn't let me to go. I did. It doesn't work. It's come. That's why I have to go back. And we switch to another question. How would you grade your students' civic participation regarding food issues?
Aleksandar, since you have actual students of your own, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, you can also comment it in between our participants are answering.
I'm just trying to understand the question. How would you grade your students?
And in this, I'm sorry, but yeah, it doesn't allow me to go again. So I need to move back with this and move to another question here.
I love this system. It's beautiful. It's, oh my God, this graphs.
Yeah, but it somehow today it doesn't work very well. So just the last question to participants, if you find this webinar useful. And meantime, I would like to say a huge thank you to both our presenters. It was a really pleasure to hear all your presentations and beautiful examples. And I hope it was really inspirational also for our participants. So thank you so much for today. And this recorded webinar will be available on our website for everyone to watch it. And we are also inviting you for the webinar for tomorrow. And yeah, thank you so much for today. So,
thank you so much. I really enjoyed this opportunity to share. And I just also wanted to invite our participants, since we have not answered all the questions that we saw in the chat. Since urban agriculture education is so widespread right now, there's so many ways to connect with other educators who are doing through social media. Just search on the internet. Maybe there are some teachers who are in next school next to you in your town of doing something. Work together, collaborate, exchange ideas for curriculum that works locally, or learn something from far away. It's really great to yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to share and learn from Aleksandar and from Montenegro as well.
I agree, that would be a fantastic idea also to have some projects, collaborative project between few schools or from different areas. So yeah. Thank you. And Aleksandar, would you like to say something for the end?
Thank you, guys. I hope it was okay. This is my first webinar, so I didn't know how to organize my thoughts, but I'm pretty happy. I hope I gave my email on this chat, so because I couldn't see a lot of questions, you know, I'm still not good for technology, so everybody, you can send me a mail, somebody from our group will answer. And thank you everybody for being participants, and thank you guys for organizing this webinar.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. And yes, that's a great idea. If you can also, Alex, if you would like to share your email, and if someone is interested to send the questions directly, that will work. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thanks to my co-presenter Maggie as well.
And thank you.
Bye, Maggie.
Bye.